Gyles and Alison Phillips are here to discuss the news stories that are making the headlines today, and of course, all the headlines governed by VE Day celebrations, Gyles.
And it's so moving, isn't it? Just, the whole thing is moving. And seeing there, Dermot in the aeroplane. My father-in-law was in the RAF throughout the Second World War. My dad was in the army throughout the Second World War. You will have had, I think you had a grandfather who was in the Home Guard.
And my grandmother worked in a munitions factory.
Yeah,
really?
So,
we've got to remember these people, our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents' generation, and what they gave for 6 years. The war didn't end today, it ended in Europe today. It went on in the Far East until August, September. But today at 12 noon is the moment that we commemorate this. There'll be 2 minutes silence at a special service at Westminster Abbey, where the King and the Queen will be, senior politicians, veterans, charities involved in armed forces, and a special moment when Winston Churchill, such a huge figure in the Second World War, our Prime Minister from 1940 onwards, his great-great-grandson, Alexander Churchill, will be lighting a candle. There'll be a special moment there, because it was Churchill.
This is him there, look, can you imagine that?
Yeah, extraordinary for this little boy. But it's a wonderful link. Churchill was so important because, as somebody once said to me who was there at the time, he gave voice to the nation's courage. The speeches that he made, and it's always somebody like me who loves the English language, it was the power of the way he spoke throughout the war, kept everyone going, because some of the hours, the darkest hours, really were dark. Nobody knew at the beginning how it was going to end. So the relief they must have felt 80 years ago today is extraordinary. So there's that big service at 12 noon, 1,800 people at that. This afternoon, Royal British Legion, of course, they've got a private tea party at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire for veterans and their families. The charity SAFA, they've got a VE Day event tonight at the Royal Albert Hall that I think you can listen to on the radio. Lots of 1940s songs. We will be hearing We'll Meet Again several times today, including, I think, at Westminster Abbey.
Yes, I bumped into Catherine Jenkins, actually, just through here, and she says, yes, that's what I'm singing
She's
later.
singing
Quite right, too.
Yes.
And then tonight, there's a concert, Horse Guards Parade, stars of stage and screen, and readings, and I think something like 12,500 people will be there for that. The King and the Queen will be there. And then beacons, late tonight, lit all over the country, 2,500 of them, and the pubs are staying open till 1 in the morning.
We've got an extra couple of hours in the boozer, Alison.
Yeah, I mean, it is an amazing thing to celebrate. And I think, you know, as Gyles was saying there was times during that war when we were on our own as a country. It was just us fighting fascism at that point. And it is at a time where sometimes we can often do this country down and everything it stands for. It is worth remembering that bravery and that leadership that we have from Churchill.
There's that wonderful bit of audio of the Queen talking about the fact that she and her sister snuck out on VE Day celebrations. They snuck out of Buckingham Palace and she pulled her hat down low so they could be amongst the crowd.
And one of the officers said to her, you can't put your hat down. Wear your uniform properly, girl. And it was Princess Elizabeth. She was wearing her ATS uniform. She didn't want to be recognised, so he said, no, wear it properly. And they went with a group from Buckingham Palace right up to Piccadilly Circus and back down again. And they sent a message in to the King and Queen. Well, they were with Princess Margaret Rose and Princess Elizabeth, saying, we're waiting out here, come out again. And the King and the Queen came out again to wave. I think they came out in all 8 times during the day for the cheering crowds. And I think it's the only time in our history that centre on the balcony was somebody who was not a member of the royal family, in Winston Churchill. I don't think I've ever seen another, as it were, non-royal there centre stage.
But the idea, Alison, love the idea that our Queen, eventually, she was a princess at the time, and her sister didn't want to miss out, and they snuck out.
But that sense of joy on the streets, probably never, ever anything like that before or since, really, and the hardship that ordinary people had been through, and the grief that so many people had suffered. And I was talking to a friend of mine recently who was sort of in her late 80s, and she was saying that she woke up really early one morning and saw her mum in a nightie running down the street to this man, not knowing that was her father coming back from the war. You cannot imagine what that how hard it was for people.
There was so little to celebrate, and then all of a sudden.
But I once asked the psychologist, Dr. Anthony Clare, why people of my parents' generation sometimes talked about the Second World War as a happy time, a good time. But I said, because my mother, there were bombs falling on the flat where she lived in London. And he said, yes, there were bombs falling. But there was a sense of community, a sense of common purpose and shared values. And that does make people pulling together, you feel happier. And yes, the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen, the women fighting in the war, yes, they were risking their lives on a daily basis, but they were also being tested and being challenged is part of finding satisfaction in life.
And they rose to that occasion.
They rose
so
to
well.
Brilliant.
We'd love to know how you're celebrating VE Day today. So send us your pictures of the street parties you might be having.
Any family as well.
Yeah, any people that you're remembering.
Or
stories.
used to tell you stories.
Absolutely.
That's what I always remember is my gran telling me stories.
That would be really lovely. We're going to do a phone in a little bit later on, talking about what you remember and your family members, so do get in touch. We need to talk about this other story, which I think is very fitting for today, Alison, which is the memorial for Queen Elizabeth.
Yes, so next year the memorial will open somewhere in St James's Park, so sort of within spitting distance of the palace. And so all these different designs have been put forward, and there's some interesting ones. Some people might prefer more than others. There's a tranquil paths, sort of to represent a tranquil family. I'm not sure whether it's always tranquil, but anyway, there's a memorial walk. So this one here's the lily pad, which I think looks a little bit something out of Star Trek. Not so certain
someone
about that one.
I can't remember who it was. There was a designer at Chelsea this year, the last Chelsea Flower Show, who did something a little bit similar. And those structures are so impressive. Whether it comes out like that, I think that could be quite compelling.
That's a Thomas Heatherwick design. He also designed the buses.
New route master when they
They rebranded.
You've got the Queen on a horse in the middle of it as well.
That one's beautiful.
I mean, it is beautiful, but it's quite big, isn't it? So
it does feel a bit futuristic, Star Warsy, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does. And then there's bridges, and then there's an oak. This is the wind. So this is
the wind
a
sculpture.
wind sculpture, which is quite sort of modern. Gyles and I were talking about this earlier. I think perhaps it doesn't really seem to represent the Queen terribly well.
OK.
And if you were maybe coming on holiday from the United States and you wanted to go to something that really represented our late Queen, would that necessarily be the one? But I mean, it's interesting.
I can't tell what the designs are.
Yeah, let's have a look.
I would like to see an image of the Queen.
Right.
It's going to be unveiled next year because that will be
there's this one as well, isn't it?
centenary.
Now, I love this. So
you like this one,
I really like this. This is based on an oak tree from Windsor, which is recast in bronze. So
that would be a bronze
This is a
sculpture there
bronze
on the
tree
left.
in the middle. It's the exact size of an oak tree from Windsor, which is absolutely beautiful. But again, does that instantly say to you, Queen Elizabeth II?
In fairness to them, there will be a pathway on which there will be different symbols of the Queen's life.
Yeah.
OK.
So you will learn, and there's going to be an audioscape as well, so you can hear moments as you go.
There's the pathways across the...
Yeah, I quite like this.
Yes.
I think it's quite pretty, but...
There are 5 very interesting ideas, and it's been pulled together by a committee headed by a man called Robin Janvrin, Lord Janvrin, who was the late Queen's private secretary for quite a while. So they know what they're doing, they know what mattered to her.
And then what happens? Do people get to vote?
Yes, we can all...
This is amazing.
We can all feedback. So you just go to government.uk and you put in Queen Elizabeth II Memorial.
Oh, OK.
And you can actually look at all the designs in detail, and do look at them in detail, because the perspective, etc., does make a big difference.
But there isn't long. So it's only, I think, May the 19th is the cut-off date. So you need to get on there today.
Action, as Churchill would say, action this day.
Just like that.
Someone give him a cigar quickly, can you?
Lovely stuff. Thank you both.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.